The most famous fighter plane in history was not the best fighter in its own war, and the pilots who fought against it knew it. In the summer of 1940, the British Spitfire met the German Messerschmitt 109 in the skies over England. Britain stood alone against Hitler, and her survival came down to these two fighter planes and the handful of men who flew them. We remember it as the fight the Spitfire won, the plucky underdog that saved the world. But here's what the legend leaves out. Put the two planes side by side, engine for engine, gun for gun, and the Spitfire was not the better machine. They were near twins, and in some ways the German fighter was the deadlier of the two. So how did the better airplane lose the most important air battle of the century? The answer isn't a plane, it isn't a gun, it isn't even a pilot, it is a secret hidden on the ground, and once you see it, you will never see this battle the same way again. This is the real story of Spitfire versus 109. Our story really begins not in 1940, but 5 years earlier, in the spring of 1935, at a quiet airfield in Bavaria. Germany is rearming, and the new Luftwaffe needs a modern fighter. The man who answers the call is an ambitious designer named Willy Messerschmitt. His idea is brutally simple and brilliant. Take the smallest, lightest airframe you can build and bolt it to the most powerful engine you can find. No excess, no comfort, just speed and climb and killing power. The result is a small, sleek, vicious little machine the world will come to know as the Messerschmitt 109. But on the day of its first flight, there is a problem. The powerful new German engine it was designed around is not ready. So to get the prototype airborne, the Germans go shopping. And the engine they bolt into the nose of their brand new fighter is British. A Rolls-Royce, the most famous German warplane in history, made its very first flight on an English engine. History has a dark sense of humor like that. 2 years later, the 109 is blooded in the skies over Spain. German pilots use that country's civil war as a live-fire laboratory, and they learn fast. New tactics, new formations, lessons paid for in real blood. By the time the Second World War begins, the 109 isn't a prototype anymore. It is a predator that has already learned to hunt. It tears the Polish Air Force out of the sky in weeks. It helped shatter France in a single, stunning month. By the summer of 1940, the Messerschmitt 109 has never met its equal. It is, very possibly, the finest fighter in the world, and it is about to meet the one airplane built to take it on. To find that airplane, we cross the channel and meet a very different kind of man. His name is Reginald Mitchell, R.J. Mitchell. And while he built rugged flying boats for the military, his true obsession was speed. He built racers all through the 1920s. Mitchell designed some of the fastest aircraft on Earth, sleek seaplanes that scream across the water on floats. He builds them to win one thing, the Schneider Trophy, the Formula One of the sky. In 1931, one of his seaplanes wins it outright at over 340 miles an hour, and within weeks, his design holds the world airspeed record. Nobody on the planet is building wings like this man, but Mitchell is watching Germany rearm, and he is afraid, so he takes everything he knows about pure, screaming speed and he pours it into a fighter. He gives it a thin, curved, elliptical wing, a shape borrowed from nature. Beautiful and deadly. In 1936, it flies for the first time, and it is so graceful the company gives it a name, the Spitfire, a name, by the way, that Mitchell himself reportedly couldn't stand. But here is where the story turns cruel. Because while Mitchell is finishing the airplane that will one day save his country, he is dying. Cancer. He keeps working anyway. Near the end, too weak for the factory, he would sit in his car at the edge of the airfield just to watch his Spitfire fly. On the 11th of June, 1937, Reginald Mitchell dies. He is 42 years old. He never sees the Battle of Britain. He never sees a single Spitfire fire its guns in anger. He never knows that the beautiful little racer he built while he was dying will help save the world. 3 years later, in the summer of 1940, his creation finally meets the German Predator over the skies of England. Two machines born less than a year apart, from two men who never met. One built to conquer, one built by a dying man to defend. And for the first time, they are pointed straight at each other. Summer 1940. The skies over Kent and Sussex. For the first time, the Spitfire and the 109 meet, and the men flying them discover something unsettling. They are flying near mirror images of each other. Two of the finest single-seat fighters ever built, so closely matched that a fight between them comes down to inches and seconds and nerve. Let's get inside one of those fights. A Spitfire and a 109 lock into a turning battle, both pulling hard, both clawing for the inside of the circle. And here, the Spitfire has the edge. That thin elliptical wing lets it turn just a little tighter than the German. Hold the turn long enough and slowly, agonizingly, the Spitfire creeps around toward the 109's tail. The German pilot feels it. He knows he is losing the circle, so he does the one thing the British pilot can't follow. He rams the stick forward, points the nose at the ground, and dives. In his Messerschmitt, that's no problem. The massive Daimler-Benz engine uses direct fuel injection, so it keeps running smoothly even as he pushes over into negative G. He simply falls out of the sky, away from danger. The Spitfire pilot tries to follow, and his mighty Rolls-Royce Merlin engine coughs because the early Spitfire's carburetor can't handle that sudden push. For half a second, the fuel cuts out and the engine splutters. Half a second at 400 miles an hour is 100 yards. To chase the German down, the Spitfire pilot has to roll the airplane onto its back first, then pull through, and by then, the 109 is gone. That dive saved a lot of German lives. The 109 had other ways to hurt you too. Down low, its engine was simply stronger, as much as 200 extra horsepower, so it could climb away from a fight the Spitfire couldn't quite match. And when it got its sights on you, it hit like a hammer. The Spitfire fought with 8303 Browning machine guns, a blizzard of small bullets that needed a long, steady burst to bring a plane down. The 109 carried something heavier, 20mm MGFF cannons. Those explosive shells didn't just punch holes in metal, they detonated inside it. A single, well-aimed half-second of cannon fire could tear a wing apart. So let's be honest about what we are looking at. The Spitfire turned better. The 109 climbed better, dived better, and hit harder, put the best German pilot against the best British pilot in a fair fight, and you genuinely could not call it. If anything, on raw performance, the German plane had its nose in front. And yet, here is the thing that should stop you cold. The Germans had the better airplane on points, and they were losing the battle anyway. Day after day, the 109s crossed the Channel, and day after day, fewer of them came home. So, what was killing them? Part of the answer was that chain we talked about, the chain made of fuel. Remember, the 109 was born as a short-range interceptor, built to defend German skies, not to cross a sea. From its bases in France, it burned half its fuel just getting to the fight. Over London, a German pilot had, at the very most, about 20 minutes before the gauge forced him to turn for home. 20 minutes. And then a long, lonely flight back over open water, praying the engine didn't cough on fumes. The British had no such problem. They were fighting in their own backyard. But fuel alone doesn't explain it, because here is the real mystery. Again and again, the British fighters weren't scrambling in a panic, searching an empty sky. They were already up there, already waiting, at the right height, in the right place, with the sun behind them, almost as if they knew the Germans were coming. How? How does a defender outnumbered and on the back foot keep showing up in exactly the right spot at exactly the right moment, again and again? The answer has nothing to do with the Spitfire. It is the secret we have been circling this whole time. And to see it, you have to stop looking at the sky and look down at the coast of England. Because all along that coastline stood a row of strange steel towers, and those towers were about to change warfare forever. They were radar stations, a chain of them all along the south and east coasts called Chain Home. In 1940, this was something close to science fiction. These towers could throw invisible radio waves out over the Channel and catch the echo of German planes gathering over France. From as far as 80 miles away, long before a single enemy aircraft crossed the English coast, for the first time in history, a country could see an air raid coming. But, And this is the part everyone misses. Radar by itself is almost useless. A blip on a screen is just a blip. It doesn't win anything. What won the Battle of Britain wasn't the radar. It was the mind that connected the radar to everything else. That mind belonged to a quiet, austere air marshal named Hugh Dowding. Dowding understood a truth his enemy never grasped. Information is only a weapon if it reaches the right man in time to use it. So he built something the world had never seen and gave it no dramatic name. We just call it the Dowding System. Picture it as a vast nervous system laid over the whole of southern England. The radar towers and thousands of ground observers are the eyes. The moment they spot a raid, the information races down telephone lines into a single underground room. There, in a bunker beneath a place called Bentley Priory, all the chaos becomes one clear picture. Young women of the Air Force push wooden markers across an enormous map, and everyone can see it at a glance. Where the Germans are, how many, how high, where they are heading. That picture flows down to the squadrons, and a calm voice comes over the radio, straight into a pilot's ears. Climb to 20,000 feet. Steer 180, 40 of them, dead ahead. Now, think about what that does to the fight. The British pilots don't waste a drop of fuel wandering the sky. They sit on the ground, safe, until the system knows the enemy is on the way. Then they take off, climb to exactly the right altitude, and wait above the Germans, hidden in the glare of the sun. The Spitfire isn't hunting the 109. The 109 is flying blind into a trap that was set before it even left France. Now put yourself in that German cockpit one more time. You have crossed the channel. You can't see the enemy. You have 20 minutes of fuel. And the British are already above you, exactly where they need to be, every single time. The better airplane has just been turned into prey. This was the world's first integrated air defense system. Nothing like it existed anywhere on Earth. The Germans bombed the towers, but they were hard to hit, and even harder to keep down, knocked off the air 1 hour back on the next. And for all their skill, the Germans never truly understood what they were up against. They thought they were fighting Spitfires. They were fighting a country that could see in the dark. It all came to a head on the 15th of September, 1940. Convinced that Fighter Command was almost finished, the Luftwaffe threw everything it had at London in one massive daylight blow. The system saw them coming. Squadron after squadron rose to meet them, exactly where they were needed. The Germans expected to find a broken, exhausted enemy. Instead, the sky filled with British fighters. They lost dozens of aircraft they could not replace. 2 days later, Hitler quietly postponed the invasion of Britain, indefinitely. The duel between the two great fighters had ended in a draw, but the battle had already been won. Not in the cockpit, but in a network of towers, phone lines, and quiet underground rooms. So let's finally settle the argument the only honest way we can. As a flying machine, the 109 climbed and dived better and hit harder. The Spitfire turned better. As pure fighters, they were so close that the edge, if there was one, went to the German. But the better machine still lost. Because a magnificent sword, swung blind and out of fuel, will always lose to a lesser blade that knows exactly where to strike. The one thing that decided the Battle of Britain wasn't the plane, or the gun, or the pilot. It was a system. Eyes that never closed, and a hand to guide every blow. And now, the part the numbers can never hold. The price. The British defended this whole network with a force Churchill called, simply, the few. Fewer than 3,000 young men stood between Britain and defeat. The average age of a fighter pilot that summer was 20. The average age of the ones who died was 22. 544 of them were killed before it was over. And the system reached even into who lived and who died. A British pilot shot down was falling over home. Bail out, and he might be flying again the next morning. A German pilot shot down over England was finished, a prisoner if he was lucky. And if he ran out of fuel over the channel like so many did, there was only the cold, gray water. Picture one of them, a young pilot, alone above that water, watching his propeller slow and stop. His airplane wasn't the problem. His airplane was superb. He lost because the enemy he never saw had already won the battle on the ground. On the 16th of August, 1940, Winston Churchill walked out of one of those underground operations rooms, having watched the system fight a whole day of battle. 4 days later, he stood before Parliament and found the words for all of it. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. He was talking about the pilots, but he had just watched the machine behind them, the radar, the maps, the calm voices on the radio, and he understood. The few flew the planes, but it was a whole nation wired together that truly won. Which brings us back to where we began. Two legendary fighters, the Spitfire and the 109. The system won the war. That much isn't in doubt, but strip it all away. One plane, one pilot, one fair fight. Spitfire or 109? Which one was truly the better fighter? 80 years on, that argument has never been settled. So maybe you should settle it. Tell me in the comments, and tell me why.